is the bonus content for the December issue of Science of Rowing, and I'm thrilled to sit down once again with three-time Olympic gold medalist and Thomas Keller Award winner Eskild Ebbesen from Denmark. Eskild, thank you for making time to speak with me, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much for reaching out. I'm looking forward to this.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So the journal that I reviewed for this month's issue was a case study that focused on you. And it was published back in 2014. And the authors of the case study looked at your training data and laboratory analysis over essentially a 20-year period, your entire elite rowing career.
Yeah.
And that data included VO2 max testing, electrocardiogram, periodic testing that you did with Team Denmark throughout the year. So 10-second, 1 minute, 2,000 meter, 6,000 meter, and 60-minute testing.
Yeah.
And then also your training logs during your 2 sabbatical breaks. So one of the main takeaways from this case study that actually was in direct opposition to a lot of the research around maintaining physiological capacity as we age was that you were still achieving the same numbers that you did at 36 and 40 that you had at 19 and 31. So in short, there was no regression.
Yeah, that's right. That's the conclusion. But if I really have to go into clean details, there's no statistical change, but I definitely was not able to get close to my personal records as the age of 40.
Okay.
I was a little bit off.
Okay.
And those 2, 3, 4 seconds would not show out in statistics, but in my world it makes a difference at the Olympics.
Yes, absolutely. So for the listeners, you hit the same values in terms of your like wattage when they looked at the 300 watts submaximal step test, as well as the VO2 max. You achieved 5.9 liters a minute. But I believe you're referring right now to probably some 2,000 meter ergometer scores.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, both 2,000 meters and also the hour test and the 6K. My best numbers were at well, it was between, I would say, 28 and 26 and 32 was the really best numbers.
Okay. Oh, at that age, you mean between 26 and 32? Okay.
26 and 32. Yeah. I had the world record of the 2,000K lightweight. I think I was 26. That was I think I was 26.
That was at the Crash B, I think.
Actually, yeah, I broke it at the Crash B.
In Boston. All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about that I thought was very relevant to rowers, especially as they age, is during your career on two occasions, you took a sabbatical break that was approximately about 20 months. So one was, what were you doing during that break personally, professionally? And then the authors kind of touched on this, but I think it'd be great to go to the source and talk about what you did from a training standpoint during that time.
Yeah, I had family, and I had also a company, and I wanted to focus more in that direction. The first time I actually didn't know that I was going to start again. I probably knew that the second time. but however, I still I had been so focused on the rowing, but I had ambitions and motivation to do more sports. So I got into triathlon, mountain biking, and still rode a little bit of ergometer. So I still trained pretty hard, I would say. I still love to beat records when training on the bike, on the run, and in other disciplines. So I was very motivated for the high intensity training still.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so that was going to be my follow-up question. So over the course of a week, how many sessions would you say that you did that were high intensity interval training? Like if you trained 6 days a week, how many of those would be high intensity interval training, and then how many would be like a lower intensity?
I would say 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And were they short intervals or long intervals? Like, do you recall any types of sessions that you did?
Yeah, at that time I was doing maybe a little bit longer intervals.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how you define short, but I would sometimes go for for the triathlon training. We had we call it cross training, where you run and shift to the bike. So we would do like 1,500 meters of running and 6K biking, and we would go on with that for an hour in a very competitive way. So so that was a very tough training.
Okay.
In running, I would do that 5 or 6 times 1,000 meters, or a high intensity run around our lake, Bausberg Lake, where we train. It's about 6K, and so something like that. Actually, I didn't train a lot of hours, but I had a lot of time in the high intensity. So
Okay. And that was one of the things the authors noted too, was that when you were outside of the Team Denmark, the rowing team, the average when you were training with the team, looking at your training logs, was about 15 hours a week total. It noted that when you were on your own during those sabbatical breaks, that it was a significant reduction. So it sounds like on average you were probably doing somewhere around an hour or so a day.
An hour average a day, but it's that's on average.
On average. Right.
Some period I would do even more, and some periods less, and it was never an hour a day. It was it could be like, sometimes I would warm up for 5 minutes, and I would go for a run around the lake, and then I'll be finished, and that would be like half an hour.
Okay.
It's still high intensity, but and other times I would go for a 3-hour bike ride in the weekend or so, and maybe also a day without training.
Okay. And then in the 3-hour ride, would you still try to be hitting like a certain wattage on your bike, or would that be a little bit of a lower intensity?
Well, at that time I did, and but I wouldn't do that today. With the knowledge I have today, and that's how things develop. So yeah, we had some crazy rides at that time. Like, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. So the case study focused on up until your final race at the 2012 Olympics. So you're 40 years old, and then you just stated that what you do now would probably be different. You have a strong background in science in terms of human physiology. So how has your approach to training and your thoughts around training changed now, present day, compared to when you were competing in the elite rowing?
Yeah, I think we learned quite early. I mean, back in the 90s, that the extremely efficiency about high intensity training um, in the rowing machine, and I also wanted us to have that same quality on the water. So back in the 90s, you know, we were hammering a stay in the, away in that boat, and when we got on training camps down in Seville, the other coaches from other countries, they would shake. They would they both shake their heads, and they were also impressed because it was like it was not just 2K rowing all out. It was, you know, going 2K, turning the boat around. Those in backboard, they would, you know,
Check the
really
boat.
have to suffer to keep the oars. Had a fast turn. We would do like 12 seconds turns in the floor. It was almost harder to do the turns than rowing. So and then we would go for the long programs. So like 20 minutes programs and 12 minutes programs would always be with a turns on the on a 2K rowing course. So we had really high intensity, and that was really efficient. But we also had pretty high intensity when not doing the programs.
Okay.
Today we are more aware that that we have maybe less time. If we don't do the programs, the high intensity, we would go pretty low intensity. So not having that much middle intensity training.
So more polarized, either low or high, and nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think a lot of other countries has been doing that for a lot of years, and but we didn't do that in Denmark. If you can't go really hard, you go second hard.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, we were extremely tired, even though we didn't have that many hours. You know, you said we had like 15 hours average. You know, in the beginning we might only have 12 or something like that, but it was
hard work.
Also the warm-up was pretty hard.
Yeah, and you know, this is one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, you know, we've had a previous podcast, and I've had plenty of conversations with your teammate Mads Rasmussen and his wife Julianne, and I think in rowing, especially in the late 90s and through the early 2000s, Denmark kind of had that, was known very much for a high intensity type of program. And so it sounds like, by and large, a lot of the work that you were doing on a day-to-day basis was very much interval based. And would it be accurate to say that, you know, when you were training during your career, you didn't do a lot of steady state? No,
we didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we did. Sometimes we had a program of an hour of 22, 24, 26. But it would still be high intensity. I mean, it's not well, as high as was possible.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the coach. We would try and go as far as possible, even though it was 22 or 24 or 26. We would try and reach as far as possible. We would push as hard as we had freshness and be able to. It was never the talk about when you do 24, just try and fill the boat and sitting and make it easy for yourself. No, it was always, of course, try to make the boat float, but push hard and all those things. I think I would definitely do that different today, and so prioritize the high intensity a lot, but not a lot of volume, more like a lot of times, I would say, and then I would probably put in some more hours with lower intensity. Still concentrated though. I think that's an extremely important part of rowing compared to biking and running. Rowing just needs, in my opinion, lots more concentration about the technique and the cooperation and the balance. You can't sit with your own faults and just sit and relax. You really have to be 100% focused on the rhythm on the boat to make it go fast.
Absolutely.
To be efficient, yeah.
Absolutely. So is that one of the other changes that you've made in your own training now? I know that you touched upon that you compete in triathlon and cycling, and correct me if I'm wrong, are you present day you're 49 right now?
Yeah, I'm 49, yeah.
49. So do you do more of a polarized program for yourself these days?
Yeah. Today I'm almost 100% polarized.
Okay.
I would say, yeah. So easy warm up, easy long runs, biking, and then really trying to put in intervals almost every training. Not a lot, but like 15 minutes or something like that, or 6 times 3 minutes, or 4 times 4 minutes, or 3 times 5 minutes, or just 15 minutes or 20 minutes hard. That's really most of my training.
Yeah, it sounds like you feel like not only is it efficient, but it's also really important to keep in touch with that speed, with those higher intensities.
Yeah, it's the theory about it, and the reflections about it is that 15 minutes of high intensity training is really plenty for being very efficient for the VO2 max and pushing the limits of the muscles. But the recovery is still very fast.
Yeah.
So you're able to do it a lot of times a week. So like 5, 6, 7, sometimes 8 times a week. You can do it sometimes 2 times a day. Well, then you, of course, some of the intervals you'll be tired. Yeah. But you're still able to maintain pretty high intensity, and if you keep the intensity pretty low on the volume training, you still recover fast, and I think the challenge about this middle intensity is that it's not really efficient, but you get very tired. Yeah. And the change for me meant that I was able to keep up an extremely good shape. I didn't get better, but I could keep the same shape and still be able to work and concentrate. So I was not that tired during not training as I was when doing too much middle intensity and too much high intensity training.
Okay. And what were some of the other changes or adjustments that you had to make as an athlete as you kind of got into the second half of your career, as you got older? Were there things that you had to do sort of on a day-to-day basis, or little tweaks to the program, or talking to your teammates or coaching staff, just because as you got older, maybe your ability to recover wasn't as quick as, say, when you were in your mid to late 20s?
I was often challenged with the recovery part, and now that you're 40, you probably don't recover. And when I got a little bit of injury, and it will always be, you're 40, but but the fact was, I didn't recover slower as a 40 years of age. I didn't really. I was still the one who was able to train the most, also at high intensity. So that wasn't really the difference. And also I didn't get more injured. I would say even less, because I was more aware of when to back off. But you know, the real problem was the maximum heart rate. It just got lower and lower and lower. So even though I could get a lower heart rate at a specific intensity, the maximum heart rate just wasn't able to keep on working.
Sure.
So at 40 years of age, my maximum heart rate would really seldom come above 160.
And that was actually one of the areas I focused on quite a bit in my review of this journal. There were some other journals that I looked at that compared, essentially looking at different populations of athletes and how their hearts responded over the course of their career. And I found a journal from, it's older, but it was from 1991 that looked at 947 athletes from 22 sports. And rowing was included. And out of all of those sports, rowers were at the top in terms of how big their heart was and how much, how big the left ventricle was and how much blood that it could pump out. So what sort of, I guess my theory or my understanding of it is that by that point in your career, when you were 15, 16 years in, your heart had grown, had hypertrophy, but it had become so efficient that you could circulate blood throughout your body, bringing oxygen and nutrients and everything, but you really couldn't get your heart rate higher anymore because of that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, when I was as the article also says, I improved my VO2 max until about 25, reaching those a little less than 6 liters. I had some measurements around 6 liters, but then the maximum heart rate started it decreased all the time, but it decreased, and even though the heart got more efficient and probably bigger, pushing out more blood, and maybe the heart could be a little bit more efficient to really pump the last part of the blood out during those late years. So the minute volume of the heart, the overall blood that it was able to pressure out was the same as 40 years of age as 26, but it just pumped out more blood per
beat.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've talked quite a bit about the high intensity training. One of the other things that I read in the literature that talks about just the benefits to this. So as we age, as humans age, it's believed that we lose more type 2 muscle fibers, so more of the anaerobic muscle fibers, and purposefully and deliberately making sure that high intensity interval work is in your program consistently is a really good way, not only to make sure you're touching speed in terms of intensities, but to make sure you're engaging those types of the anaerobic system and those types of muscle fibers. Do you think that is one of the things that, because it was such an integral part of the training program over your career, that you were able to maintain some of that physiological capacity?
Yeah, I would definitely say. And in Denmark, we have a lot of ergometer training during the winter.
Yeah.
Well, I was also the one who suggested that we should go in the ergometer weekly, because of staying in touch with the numbers and reminding ourselves of what is high intensity.
Yeah.
Because sitting out only in the boat 3 weeks in a row, you will feel sorry for yourself when it starts to hurt if you can't see the numbers on how hard you're actually pushing. I've tried that. You sit out there in the boat and you feel, oh, this is so hard. Are the others pushing hard? Are they really pushing as hard as I do? Are they feeling just as bad as I am? And then we get into the ergometer and you see that you have lost 2 or maybe even 3 seconds in the ergometer, because and it's still a lot harder than you have been pushing out in the boat, because you now see the numbers. So I think it's an important part of the ability to push yourself. That is to see to get the feedback of your personal speed. What actually worked a lot was that we prioritized during the later years of rowing, was also the sparring with you mentioned Mads and Rasmus on the doubles, so they will get some seconds, like 10-12 seconds ahead of us, and we had to go for them, and we would race them on 6Ks and all those time, and we would only do that on strategical part of the program. So that could be like a couple of times a week, but it just made us push ourselves harder.
Yeah.
On those important occasions, and that became an important part of the high intensity training. That was to have someone to compete with, because otherwise we thought we were pushing ourselves hard, but we weren't really.
Yeah.
Also a kind of change that's related to your earlier question, Joe, and that was the changes in the beginning of my career. High intensity would be like 500 meters pieces, 1,000 meter pieces with like 3 or 4 with long recovery. In the later years, we would do a lot like the training I also mentioned for what I'm doing today, like 4 times 5 minutes, or even 4 times 6 minutes, or 4-minute pieces, 6 times 4 minutes. So a little lower than race pace, but more but still very close to a VO2 max intensity. Yeah. So that we were able to be within the range of the VO2 max, and being able to have more volume than, for example, doing 6 times 500 meters pieces. I'm not sure that's really efficient.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. So if you had to give advice to say an older elite rower or masters rowers, yeah, about a training program, how would you tell them to go about integrating some of the high intensity interval work into their training schedule?
Yeah, I would definitely. If you ask me personally, I would say go out and make those minute pieces, or 1,500 meter pieces, or 2,000 meter pieces, like 3 times 2,000 meters at high intensity, where you push yourself, and maybe having a little of competition now and then to make sure you're fully concentrated and you push hard everybody, I think it gets funnier. The training gets a lot funnier, and it's definitely a lot more efficient, and it simulates the way you go in competition, even though the intensity would be lower on, like, let's say 5 times 4 minutes, but it's still I would say I would prioritize that well, almost every training, if you go like 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay. The other follow-up question that I had to that was, you had said that earlier in your career you were doing, I guess, shorter intervals, and then later in the career it was a little bit longer. Would you do that throughout the entire calendar year, or would you do like even longer intervals if you were focusing on, like, say a 6,000 meter ergometer test? So I guess my question is was the high intensity interval training always geared towards the 2K race year round, or did you have changes where you would focus on a 6K or a longer distance or something like that?
Yeah, and we all know the well, not all, but the theoretical and what we teach is go around the winter, do some weight training, and do long steady state rides with low intensity, and when you get closer to January, February, you start doing long intervals, and then they get shorter and shorter compared to the competition. Well, we really didn't do that in Denmark. We would go like the whole winter hammering in the ergometer, like, well, I would say sometimes not more than an hour or 1.5 hours during the winter. And a lot of those intervals almost every day. And well, if we could go out on the water in the weekend, we would maybe do lower intensity rowing, because if I should sum up, we actually in the beginning we would do a lot of those 1 hour training, like 3 times 20 minutes, and 1 hour in different aspects, and in a period we would also go to 1.5 hour program, like 3 times half an hour now and then, also with shorter intervals and something like that. But later on we didn't have that many 1 hour programs, so it was almost all shorter programs. So the longest would be like 4 times 10 minutes, or 3 times 12 minutes on the later. And we would still do as many kilometers of rowing,
Okay.
but longer warm up and maybe more steady state. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Final question for you before we wrap up. Did you do any strength training during your career? And if not, have you started to incorporate strength training at this point in your life?
Yeah. Strength training, yes, a little bit all the time.
Okay.
But not a lot. Yes, just a little bit. And I would say not. I think in the beginning when I was rowing, I did more than in the middle period. I would say.
Okay.
Also, I was a little bit heavier during the later years of my career.
Okay.
I would say that the muscle mass were bigger in 2012 than it definitely was in 96.
Oh, okay. And the strength training that you did, was it mainly weights, or did you do calisthenics, body weight training, or was it a combination?
No, not a combination. That was with weights.
Okay, very good.
With weights. Yeah.
Very good. And then do you still prioritize some of that type of work now?
Yeah. I haven't been that structured, but it's now high priority, because I think when I was 40 it wasn't really a problem, but now the injuries, when I want to run, the injuries start coming, and also I can feel that the power is gone. So I really need to prioritize it, even though I do running, and well, it's not that important for cycling, I think, but definitely for running, I believe it's important.
Very good, very good, awesome. Eskild, where can, if anybody's interested in finding more information about you, I know that you do speaking, and you've also been the author of some books. Why don't you tell the audience where they can find you, and what you have going on and what's coming up?
I've written 2 books, and I got a homepage. It's very easy. It's eskildebbesen.com or .dk. You can. It's in Danish, and the books are also in Danish. And actually, I've written a new book together with one of my colleagues from my first company. That's about health, but it's really not it is about health, but it's even more about how to succeed with the healthy lifestyle. So it's a lot about the motivation and the willpower and the structure around your daily life, if you should be possible to actually succeed with it. And so it's not really about knowing, it's knowing what to change to in your daily life to succeed with it. It's I mean, we're talking a lot about if you want to exercise more, maybe you should ask the question, where should the time and energy come from? Is there some ambitions that you should maybe set on hold if you want to succeed with the new things? And that talk is I think is very important in the new motivation.
Excellent, excellent. I'll get those links from you, and then I'll include them in the show notes.